Hey there, it's David Gordon from TheaterMania here. It's Thursday. I don't know what date it is. It's Thursday, June 25th. Who knows what date it is anymore? I'm here with David Drake and Donald Shorter. David is the writer of The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me. Donald was a cast member of The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me. It is a play that's going to be streaming tomorrow evening.
No, Sunday.
Sunday evening, sorry, for the Provincetown Theater. Hi, guys.
Hi, David. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Actually, today is Larry Kramer's birthday.
Happy birthday, Larry Kramer. May you rest in peace.
This is an appropriate moment to have a show on him.
Yeah. David and Donald, I want to talk a little bit about the production that's going to be streaming on Sunday. It was a benefit that first took place in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And David, you could take it from there.
Oh. Well, The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me was a one-man show, a one-man play that I wrote for myself that opened off Broadway in 1992. And then I toured. I played for a year in New York, and then I toured and made it into a film. And other actors had wanted to do it, and so we licensed it out to many actors. In fact, it's been done in like 23 or 24 states in the United States, 10 continents, 4 languages. It exploded as a means of responding to really homophobia in the time of the AIDS crisis. And the title refers to the night I saw the normal heart and how it awakened me to consciousness and led me into a community that began to change my whole world and my adult life. You know, you come out, then you come to. And that's what happened with the opening up to the reality of what was going on. So when we got to the 20th anniversary of the play, I thought people were like, "Oh, you should do it. You should do it." And I thought, no, I'm too old for this. This is a young person's play. This is a very athletic, vascular kind of play. The pieces that Donald and I do, 12-inch single, is a piece that explores internalized homophobia in The Search for Love and The Disco Crawl. It's a 12-minute rap. And it's very athletic. And to speak it and do it, you have to be young, like Donald Shorter is.
I was young at the time.
You could still do it, though. This kid is amazing. Anyway, so I wanted to open it up. It was written about a community, and I played the community. So I really wanted to open it up so it was, I gave it back to the community. And I wanted the people that it had impacted, especially openly gay actors. All the cast members were openly gay. And in 2013, that was still kind of an event.
Right.
You know, 4 boys in the band on Broadway and things like that. And so we cast out a number of my friends and people in our community to claim these parts, and it divvied up into 12 different actors, and Donald is one of them. And Donald, so it worked really well. It was a benefit for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS and the Zero Project, which is about decriminalizing HIV. And the executive director of Zero and the executive director of Broadway Cares, Tom Viola and Sean Strube, were the original producers of The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me.
Oh.
So it was a coming home in a sense. I mean, when I developed Larry Kramer, that piece, I did monologues from it at on the Upper West Side at what it used to be Triad on West 72nd Street. And I can remember for Broadway Cares, but it wasn't even Broadway Cares then. It was just Equity Fights AIDS.
Yeah.
Broadway Cares and Equity Fights AIDS, there's a slash in the middle. They came together through Actors Equity and eventually. But before that, I did benefits for Equity Fights AIDS, and Tom Viola was down there with a shoebox collecting money and ripping tickets himself. They had a regular series of benefits up at the Triad, and I developed the piece through benefits and Dixon Place and a number of other places. I never saw it as a vehicle for myself. I just saw it as a vehicle to address these the issues that were being that had built, really, I thought, the AIDS epidemic in terms of systemic homophobia, you know, how you take these pieces apart and look at them separately, and each of the monologues is that. So it really broke up really well. And as I mentioned to you, David, before, one of the inspirations for this piece, and I read it this summer that I started writing this piece, this play was For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough by Ndashaki Shange, and it was profoundly moving to me. It is the story of a community as well, and these pieces that come together to form this community around African American women. And I love that piece so much. And so there's a lot of inspiration that I drew from Ndashaki Shange that is inside this, I think. So when we broke it up into a community, again, it allowed itself to unravel very easily. And Donald was a part of that. And
ask Donald, how did you get involved with the production? Did you know David or this particular work before?
Prior to working on this project, I didn't know David. I did know the director, Robert LaFosse. I was a former company member with the Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Dance Company, and Robert LaFosse is, a ballet icon, a living legend. And so our paths had crossed, and in being in the city together, and Robert and I sort of, I think, met for coffee. And then sort of it was brought up that this piece was happening and that there was an introduction that happened. And yeah, it sort of just stemmed from there. And then I think, we talked about me doing 12-inch single, and I watched it and I was like, how am I going to do this?
Can you give us a little synopsis for people that are watching this now that don't know what that particular section of the play is? Can you talk a little bit about
you want to
what it is and how you reacted to it?
Well, Donald and I wanted it as a duet. It was originally, a lot of the monologues in Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me are kind of like internalized stream of consciousness thought. Another influence on me at this time was Karen Finley and her work as a performance artist. I found that I come from legitimate theater, like Donald does too, but I found that the ideas that were being expressed on stage in the late 80s and the early 1990s were much more vibrant and exciting in the performance art field. That like real issues that Karen Finley, her piece, We Keep Our Victims Ready, for instance, was a profound impact on me. This is during the time of the NEA4 being defunded because of the content of their work. Tim Miller, John Fleck, Holly Hughes, and Karen Finley. Anyway, and I admired Bill T. Jones' work so much. So when I looked at 12-inch single as a single rap going through a late night crawl and getting drunker and drunker and more fucked up along the night and taking it out of myself and others until I was depleted at the end, I thought, this is a duet. This is like a Bill T. piece, where there's a person talking. It's dance theater. So we started constructing it with Donald and Robert into this piece where it was a duet. But Donald was the movement of the whole piece. He was living it as I was narrating his journey as a DJ.
Yeah.
So that you would find in a club.
Donald, tell me about how you put it together. Like, what was your reaction when you first were developing this thing?
I mean, I was really honored to be even considered to be a part of it because the work itself I connect to as a gay man, a queer person of color, right? Like I share similar experiences even through an intergenerational lens. That what David was sort of speaking to, I had myself was connecting to those same experiences. And so 12-inch single specifically, because, I come from nightlife, downtown, Lower East Village, West Village, below 14th Street. Those are my people. And so this whole club thing and my experiences with Fire Island and yes, having international travel to other gay cultures, I really felt like I could embody and portray these characters. And so, I mean, it was a little daunting because there were so many characters. And so being able to sort of connect with each of those characters, I really had to sort of work to understand what size were they? How did they walk? How did they talk? What was their intent in the bar? And sort of having to then switch codes at the drop of a hat was something that was really challenging, but also really that was the thing about the piece that was so brilliantly done by David. So I love the fact that I was learning how to do that through his work. And so, for me, it was really sort of crazy to see the level of internalized homophobia that this character was going through, right? Drinking more, getting, as David said, getting more fucked up to the self-demoralization to then at the end, go home with this guy. It's sort of the last part of it. There's this knife that comes out of the jacket that the character that I play has, and it's like this destructive tool that he's had the entire time. And like as the end, he's wrapping it all around his face and his chest, and at the end of it, it's like he sort of comes to and he's like, let's go, right? So like the guy that probably is the worst person for him, he essentially gets himself so inebriated that like he ends up going home with that person. So I think that just spoke so much to sort of the problems that we face as gay men in our own community. So it was really powerful to be able to channel all these different characters that I have been or seen or have experienced in the bar.
And just able to explain, to the viewers out there who haven't seen it, there's a central character that Donald plays, and then he like cruises different people. He observes them and he describes them as if they're a personal ad. So it's a GWM 2565250LBS blonde/blue. He's observing them, and inside the personal ad observation is an undermining of internal violence that it keeps emerging and emerging and emerging, which was my idea of how does homophobia, self-inflicted homophobia, our own hatred of ourselves, how is it intermingled often with misogyny? Very much so, that anything that the feminine in a male gender is seen as bad. We have moved this dialogue and this conversation to a much more expansive place in the last decade. Would you agree, Donald? You speak to this gender.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely identify as queer. I'm gender nonconforming. I'm a bearded queen now. So that's a whole nother topic. But, a person who is gender nonconforming and queer, oftentimes in cisgendered gay male spaces, the hypermasculinity is the thing that gets laid, that gets rewarded, that gets jobs and gets praised, and we can see that bartenders, our DJs, our go-go boys, right? Like literally put on pedestals. So yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so using those models of traditional or conservative, really, if you will, conserving masculinity in this form, it eats away at your self-esteem if you can't live up to that or be that or attract that, So I was really exploring how that allows us to degrade ourselves in these environments. I mean, that's the gasoline in the tank, but the tank is there. It's ready for the gas. And what happens is that gas takes this person down to a very rocky road to anger at the people he's looking at, and to a self-destruction that is reflected back on him. And the knife is a metaphor for that. And it's sensualizing this knife idea that he did. And it's jarring and sexy at the same time. The way often we think of as S&M could be as well. Not that I'm making a comment on that. I've changed my mind about S&M, but I'm going to leave it at that. This is a daytime show.
Yeah.
But
knowing that it was a one-off thing when you guys did it, when you did it years ago, what was that like for you, and particularly Donald, dancing this piece and working your way through this piece, to know that you had like the weeks of rehearsal and then the one time to put it up?
Fear. It's like, oh my gosh, it's happening so fast. But I think what was really interesting as a cast member being a part of it, that it was really amazing to see how all of the actors came together and like really contributed something that was sort of like beyond us, right? That like everyone came together and really saw the vision and was really invested in telling the story. And like I said, for me, it was a powerful moment to have this like interracial, intergenerational sort of connection with the cast. Oftentimes, the LGBTQIA plus community really likes to center that experience on youth, right? And sort of older voices and experiences get silenced and pushed off to the side. So to be able to have everyone's experience together to form this brotherhood was really powerful. So that's what I love about the experience, and just the generosity of everyone involved. And I mean, there's obviously some greats. Everyone is great in the cast, but everyone just came to the table ready to work, and that was like that was just really powerful.
And each of the monologues, David, too, you know, there's 7 really in all.
Yeah.
And so it was easy. It was like numbers, you know, in a way. It's like, okay, these 4 guys are going to do Why I Go to the Gym. Donald and I are going to do 12-inch single. This guy's going to do The Little Boy. That's Rory O'Malley and Ode to the Village People. And then the vigil, there's a vigil piece called 1,000 Points of Light, which is a line from a George Bush campaign speech. And it's about trying to find a kind of spiritual understanding of what immense loss, constant immense loss means. Is there any logic to this? So that piece involved everybody. The entire cast eventually came on stage from their different pieces, so it became a group number, if you will. And then I was split up into kind of 3 different people throughout the piece. It was intergenerational, as Donald was saying. There was me in my age, and I was in my 40s. And then there was a guy in his 30s, and there was a guy in his 20s. So I was looking at intergenerational exchange. If I had to do it over again, I would look a little bit further into that. I would look further into people of color. I had B.D. Wong, Robin de Jesus, Donald, and I reached out to Andre de Shield, whom I'd always admired. This is before the great revival of everyone going, "Oh my God, Andre de Shield is fabulous." Like, I've always known that. So but I also, you know, I wanted him to be there as a survivor. You know, when we just look at generationally, he has survived these decades of death in his communities, in his various multi communities that he belongs to. And that was very powerful for me to have him at the center of the vigil, almost like a mythic character who has led us through. It's what he's playing in Hadestown now, or was and will. But so that was important to me. Like Donald was saying, I love that sharing of that. That's where I come from, I guess, because when I was a kid, you know, I very much looked up to the older gays to sort of lead me in my education as a citizen, as a queer citizen. You know,
I want to talk a little bit about the influence of Larry Kramer, who just passed away. He was there. He's obviously the focal point. The Normal Heart is the focal point of the title of the play.
That's correct.
And he was there in 2013 when you guys did it.
Yes. That was cool, right, Donald?
Yeah.
I don't know if we were told that he was going to be there. So then at the reception, I don't know, there was a million one things going on, but to see him, to be able to take that picture with him and to give him a hug and a kiss and thank him for his fight for justice, you know, was like something I never in a million years thought that I would be able to experience. Yeah.
It was amazing. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. It really was. I've had people still tell me I was there. I got to meet Larry Kramer. I'll always thank you for that. Like a lot of people wanted to thank him, you know, from different generations. And when I look at this piece, not only to pay homage to Larry, and maybe Donald, I'd rather you speak about this, but I was looking at the energy that drove that piece and the energy of rage and injustice towards the state, which is what it comes from that poem by Auden about attacking the state. And I thought, we're at a crossroads with this moment right now. We've exploded with Black Lives Matters. The energy of activism is omnipresent with us right now in an unexpected kind of way. That it took this long to get us to here is a great tragedy in our culture. Reminds me a bit about Matthew Shepard and how all the deaths that led up to him, and then an explosion of one where we were educated enough to know this is wrong. We have to change all of this now. And I thought, well, Larry's energy is the legacy of that. That's what he said. You have the power. You have to grab your power, take it, and go with it. Make the country you want. Make the community you want. Make them be responsible for you. I don't know if you want to speak to any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like, you know, the cultural uprisings in history are there for a reason, and that, you know, the power, you know, in many cases doesn't lie within the people, and in some cases it does. And it's important that we do have this level of uprising of Stonewall, Act Up, right? Like, if it wasn't for Act Up, you know, they fought and died to be able to get into the level of like Congress to be able to change laws. And I think now we're seeing that this level of protest coming from the younger generations, you know, that, look, I'm 40, right? So I've seen, you know, decades, Rodney King and like, I've seen it, you know, and this moment now feels really different, that the younger generations are just, you know, they're not holding back.
Right.
And that is where I sort of see this rage and this uprising, like the necessity of it, but also in that there is something that's different about this uprising in terms of the civil wars that are happening right now than that have happened in the past. Yeah, so I definitely sort of am able to see how we're connecting Black trans lives matter, right? You know, to the Black Lives Matter movement, that, you know, all of these marginalizations and intersections like are working together as a unit, and this is how we all have to come together in this moment right now to really have justice, you know, just not for some but for all. And it's amazing.
Black Lives Matters. We have
Yep.
to say Black Lives Matters, that they really matter. And what's as a history context, there's a great book by Martin Duberman. There's many great books about the Stonewall and how it came about. And Martin Duberman wrote one, this is probably 25 years ago, because it was before I did the Larry Kramer show. And I read it around that time. And he picks all these different people as these threads that lead to Stonewall. And there's the women's movement, there's the anti-war movement, there is a queer movement, a gay men's movement, there is a lesbian movement, there is the NAACP, because there were white queers involved with those movements, like David Mixner and stuff like that. And these threads led to this moment at Stonewall. All those pieces of activism led to something that exploded the next chapter of a kind of activism, and like, okay, we can use these tools to get these things done now. But we couldn't get there until they had all this experience. And like Donald was saying, man, these kids, this intergeneration, these young kids of all colors and all walks of class and life are, I hate to use the word, well, it's overused, but it is inspiring. It's like, oh, okay, oh yes, and they will take us forward, and we need to support them, and we're in which ways we can. Which for older people like Don and I, who are loaded with money, we know the loaded people can give their money to those things to support those kids who are doing the foot soldier work, but the artists like Donald and me, you know, what we do is we just got to create pieces of stories that help support it's not agitprop, but it support the witnessing, so that these people feel like, yes, we are in this together. And that's what the Larry Kramer play was really about for me. And that's what the Normal Heart did for me. Like, oh my God, we're in this together. And even in the Normal Heart, although he doesn't have a person of color in that play, you can interject that in casting. He didn't write it that way, but because those weren't the guys he was witnessing. But he does have intergenerational kinds of guys in there. He's got the Tommy Boatwright, and then he's got the older one saying Ned, and he's got that soldier from another place. So the intersections of people, and recognizing the wrong to come together to change it, is where we are again. It's just, it keeps changing in activism over years, and artists just can witness that. That's what we can do.
And the work that you do and the work that I do is activism, right? Because it's directly speaking to that experience that is connected to the world in which, you know, we live and see and experience. And, you know, obviously, because you created The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me, yeah, we're able to have conversations about how we can move forward. You know?
Exactly.
That's a way that I sort of view a way in which I can be an activist.
Yeah, I looked at it as a career move. You know, it just happened. It was my weapon to fight AIDS, and I was going to save the world. And then when I didn't, when it was all done over about 5 years, I was depressed. because I felt like I had to reconcile my own, like, oh, you can't do this singularly. And I just felt so responsible for people's lives that I don't know. You know, it's my own thing. You know, I got very into that. So,
well, David, tell us where on Sunday night we can watch it.
ProvincetownTheater.org.
Theater's with an RE or an ER? Because I know that
ER, the American way, because we're Provincetown, the birthplace of American theater. And you can also see it on our YouTube channel. It'll be one night only. It's a one-time streaming, so it's an event. It will not be on our platform, so you can go back and revisit it. It's also free, but if you would like to donate, I would greatly appreciate it so that we can build our season going forward for next year, because we've had to lift our entire season out this year, 5 productions and subscribers, and place them down into 2021. And we've got some great queer stuff coming up next year too. We've got Mae West, The Drag, a full production of that play that hasn't been done since 1927 when it got closed down by the cops. We're going to do that. We're going to do a world premiere by Sarah Schulman called The Lady Hamlet, which is a brilliant, hilarious comedy, actually, by a brilliant writer, and some other stuff too. Moon for the Misbegotten with Norman Mailer's son is going to star in that for me. Cool. So we're having it's really good. We got some good stuff.
David, Donald, thank you so much.
And we had Donald too at our show last year. He brought a solo show up to my theater.
Yeah, for the solo show festival they were doing for the Pride celebration. So
he brought Genderosity up, and so this relationship with Donald has continued. You know what I mean, to develop his own stuff, and our audience fell in love with him. So I have to have you back for something when you're maybe a summer thing. We'll talk offline on this.
We'll talk.
To know that the seeds are being planted right here.
That's right. Thank you, David Gordon, for planting the garden.
Thank you, David Drake. Thank you, Donald Shorter. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, shit.
Watch The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me on Sunday. The link's on the screen. Provincetowntheater.org. Thank you both. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Bye.